Okay, guys, we're gonna get started here. It's about a minute after 12. Hopefully you can see my screen and hear me. I am gonna start this here. There we go. Okay, so we are talking about protein today. Um, one of the huge building blocks of our body. Lots of talk about protein, I'd say, in the last decade or so. And we're going to dive into why that is and how it can be a help to you in your fitness and health goals. But before we get started, just wanted to open it up if anyone has questions or wants to give feedback on last week's topic around fats. Some of you may have tracked which fats you were eating or tried to do a little bit more about choosing the right fats. So if you want to share anything, you pop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and share. I notice my guilty pleasure is chips, and so they have lots of trans fat. So I need to do a better job of cutting those out. Um, Activity, my whole family was sick last week, so we took a dive on the activity side, but I plan to get back to that today now that we're all feeling better and stuff. So oops, that's been one area of a struggle for me the last week, but I was doing really well, so I got to get back on that train. So anyone want to share anything? Okay, hearing none, we'll move right along to protein. Basically, the message of the or the moral of the story today is we probably all need to be eating more protein, especially for someone who's struggling with our weight or trying to lose weight. And we're going to learn why that is today. So protein. Protein is really the stuff of life. Everything uses protein. It is like the main building block of the body. We talked about fat also being a building block, but protein's really the champion here in that regards. It's the glue that kind of holds every cell together. So without enough protein, cellular functions just aren't at their optimal process. It's the building block of our hormones, of our immune system and antibodies, of our muscles, even things like our fingernails and hair. So everything has some sort of protein in it. And our body can make different protein enzymes. And sometimes we'll get some of those through our body or through our diets too, and we'll talk about that. Just like fat, though, some protein sources, or depending on the protein source, it can impact your health and your fitness goals. So I wouldn't say there's like a bad protein sources, but are bad protein, but the sources that protein can be found in can help or hurt your fitness and your health goals. And we'll talk about that today too. So why eat protein, or why do we need protein? We already talked about it's the builder, right? The builder block. So it's going to build our muscles, our bones, our cartilage, our skin. We talked about nails and hair. It's also used as the repair mechanism in our body. So anytime we maybe get hurt or need to fix something in our body, protein is going to be the response mechanism there. It oxygenates our blood. So your oxygen is carried through your body through your blood, and the red blood cells contain that protein compound that allows the oxygen to be absorbed into the blood and, of course, delivered and carrying the nutrients to where they need to be. Digestion, half of our protein goes into making enzymes within our gut and in our digestive tracts to digest the food we make. It helps them to make new cells and initiate all those chemical enzymes and reactions that happen in the body to get the nutrients to where they need to go and to get the hormones made and everything like that. Same with regulation. Protein regulates our hormones, and really important during transformational stages in our life. So through early childhood and then also into puberty, protein plays a big role in these hormones. And of course, there's fitness benefits to eating an appropriate amount of protein. So protein is shown to speed recovery after a workout or some sort of sporting event. It reduces how fast our body loses muscles and atrophy, especially like as we age. Protein is super helpful. Builds lean muscle, and we talked about how muscle is like the metabolic engine of our body, and protein's what's going to build that. Therefore, it helps maintain a healthy weight, and protein really helps keep us full because it's hard to digest, and so it tends to curb hunger. And so when you eat high protein meals, you tend to be able to go a long time without feeling that hunger pain again. So lots of good reasons to be having protein in our diet. There are several different types of proteins, and then the body can even break these down and create more types of proteins. So this is just kind of a high level thing, but it's still kind of sciencey. So we'll go through it quick. But there's different types of proteins: antibody proteins, contractile proteins, enzymes, hormonal, structural, storage, and transportation proteins. So all these different types of proteins do different roles in the body. So we talked about some are builders, some got transport things like oxygen, other things store things, or create hormones, things like that. There's kind of three classes, and you hear a lot about this if maybe you're like a vegan or a vegetarian, about like if you don't eat meat or something, you're not getting all your protein. This is kind of where that comes from. There's non-essential proteins. So these are found in food sources, proteins, but they also are exactly similar to what, or exactly identical to what the body can also produce on its own without consuming them in a diet. And there's a few listed there. So we don't have to get these out of our diet because our body will make them, but it doesn't hurt us to also get them from our diet. There's conditionally essential proteins, and these are things that if our body is healthy and fueled and working well, our body will still create these hormones. However, if we are not in normal physiological conditions, maybe we're under eating or we're starved or we're born with genetic or metabolic disorders, these are things that we're going to have to get in our diet that our body's not able to create. And then there's essential amino acids, and these are things that our body cannot create, and these are proteins that we need in our diet to carry out some of these roles of protein in the body. And that's why you have to eat. You can't, excuse me, live without eating, especially protein. Just anecdotally, we had an intern here a few years ago with us in the STRIDE program. And anyway, she was a student out at Nyack and was in cross country, but she was born with a condition where she was allergic to phenylalanine. And I'd never heard of such a thing. But if you look down in the essential amino acids, it's one of the essential proteins of the body, and her body is allergic to it. And I'd never heard of such a thing, but she has to go to like extreme lengths fueling her body to make up for that loss of that protein. She was not able to have breast milk or formula as an infant. I mean, that's when they noticed it. She can't have hardly any type of traditional proteins that are sold in the body. And now they make phenylalanine free, like engineered foods and stuff. But at the time when she was here, she had to order all her groceries out of a specialty health store, I think over in like Okoboji area. Anyways, super fascinating and unfortunate for her. But it's just one of those things where there are some things that our body can't make that we have to get in our diet. And even then, allergies and stuff can cause just a little side anecdote. So where do we find protein? It's a lot of places. So this is not a complete list. Most of the time we think of protein in our animal sources, right? Like our red meats and our dairy products. So seafood, poultry, eggs, cottage cheese has a lot of protein, yogurts, whole fat milks, good sources of proteins. And these are complete proteins. So they have all the amino acid markers that you're looking for. Plant sources are generally incomplete protein sources. So they only have a few of the amino acids, but when you eat a variety of these foods, you can you can absorb complete proteins in the body through a varied diet. So legumes, beans, peas, seeds, and nuts. Again, this list is not all exhaustive. There's lots of plant sources. And there's even engineered sources, things like soy and tofu, protein powders, and grains and cereals like pastas and breads and things like that. So lots of cereal or lots of protein, but like I said, where you're getting that protein and what also is connected with it as far as fats and carbs and sugars can dictate whether it's going to be a good choice for you when you're trying to lose weight or not. So how much protein do we need? There's a lot of debate around this. If you look at like the food guidelines through the FDA and USDA, they recommend about 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of your body weight. So for an easy way for you to figure that out is just like take your weight in pounds times 0.36, and that's how many grams of protein you need. However, the RDA recommendations are like the bare minimum of protein intake, and I don't think many people realize that, but this is the minimum amount of protein you need before your body's enzymes and chemical reactions and stuff start to not work well. And so, some people are like, well, I got close to that. Well, not having enough, it's going to be detrimental to your health and your optimal performance. And so I wouldn't say it's a great recommendation to go by when it comes to how much protein you need. So this top chart here shows what the USDA recommendations are. So like if we look at ourselves, women, middle-aged, we need about 46 grams of protein a day based on RDA recommendations. That's pretty low, especially for someone who's trying to lose weight and put on extra muscle. We need those protein building blocks to build that muscle. So if you talk with more dietitians and nutritional and fitness professionals and weight loss professionals and physicians, they're going to recommend higher protein intakes, somewhere between 1.3 to 1.8 grams per kilogram. So take your weight times 0.59, you're going to get a closer goal of where your protein intake should be. And if you're someone who's really trying to put on the muscle, really trying to get lean, maybe you're an athlete or someone like that, your protein's probably going to be higher than that. Your intake's also going to be based on your age, any metabolic needs you might have, and of course, I already just mentioned your fitness and health goals. So we always think like, oh, as we age, our portions are going to get smaller, we won't need as much, we're going to eat less and less. But with protein, your intake actually should stay the same or maybe increase a little bit because of that wasting away of muscle. We don't want to lose that. And so protein intake really becomes a major focus as we age. Metabolic needs also increase or dictate how much protein we should have. So if you're pregnant, obviously you need more. If you have certain diseases, you may have to limit or increase how much protein you have as well. So there can be some specifications based on your need. This bottom chart shows you more, probably appropriately, of where your protein goals should be when you're trying to lose weight or if you're working out. So for me, in this range, I need closer to 90 to 95 grams of protein a day. And up here, it just said 46. So that's like double what the RDAs are. And I will tell you, when you eat this much protein, one, you're not as hungry throughout the day, but two, you do start to see weight loss because protein, again, builds that muscle, and that muscle is what turns on our metabolism and our engine in the body to burn that fat. So again, sounds counterintuitive, eat more to lose weight, but that's really what happens when you're eating more protein. The right protein, like I mentioned, is important. Timing is a big thing. This is something that I don't know if a lot of people know, but the body does not store a lot of excess protein. So timing is really important when you eat your protein. So say I need 90 grams, it's not a good idea for me to eat all 90 of those grams at supper, have a huge steak and all that kind of stuff, because my body's only going to store a very limited amount of that protein, and then it's just going to excrete the rest. So one, it's helpful. I mean, that's why protein also is helpful in weight loss, is because your body's not storing those extra calories it can't hold on to. But two, spreading that protein out throughout the day is going to be more helpful to help your muscles build and use that protein the way it needs to be used throughout the day, because it doesn't have access to an unlimited amount in the body. So recommendation, if I'm someone who's trying to get close to 90 grams a day, I'm going to try to eat 20 to 30 grams of protein per meal. Or, oops, that's supposed to be 3 to 4, not 304 hours, or every 3 to 4 hours. A good rule of thumb is for every meal and snack, include protein in it. So if you're someone who eats every couple of hours, small meals and snacks, maybe 15 to 20 grams of protein at every eating cycle is what your goal is, so that at the end of the day, you're close to your protein goals. Again, the timing thing is important because, again, we can't store that protein. It's also helpful to pair it with other healthy nutrients. So, grass-fed meats are good choices, whole fat dairy products because it has that healthy fat in it. Plant-based sources are good, and high-quality protein powders can also be super helpful for helping you reach your protein goals. Protein powders have really soaked up the market right now, and you can find them pretty much anywhere. Some are good, some are better than others. But there's certainly ways to get protein into our diet. It's just we need to make the effort a lot of times. Here's a quick video about why protein is important, and then we'll wrap it up.
When it comes to weight loss, there are a lot of different diets and theories out there. But one thing that all experts agree on is the importance of eating enough protein. Protein helps you keep your metabolism going, it provides essential nutrients for your body, and it helps you feel fuller for longer. That's why it's so important that you make sure you're including protein in every meal, especially when you're trying to lose weight. When you're losing weight, having protein with each meal will ensure that the weight that you lose is actually fat and not lean muscle, which can happen if you don't eat enough protein. There are plenty of delicious and healthy ways to get more protein into your diet, so there's no excuse not to increase your intake. So next time you're feeling hungry, reach for a high protein snack instead of empty calories, and your body and your weight loss goals will thank you for it. For tips on how to add more protein to your diet, then check out our free cheat sheet on how to increase your protein.
Okay.
When it comes
sorry. There we go. Okay, so that video did a good job of explaining why protein is helpful and why we should be eating it every meal. I think back to like, oh gosh, when I was in college and stuff, protein really wasn't talked about as the weight loss solution. It was more like cut calories, cut fat, low fat diets. And so I remember like at snacks, I'd be like, oh, I can't have fat or protein. So I'd eat like granola bars or crackers, and I'm thinking like, oh, these are low sugar or don't really have a lot of fat or protein. There might be some carbs in them, but that's okay. And not, and now it's like complete 180. Like that's exact opposite of what I should have been doing when what we should be doing. So protein and fat, again, are our friends. Focus on those. They're good nutrients for the body. Next week, we're going to dive into carbs. Carbs are not bad, but we're going to talk about good carbs and then the not so healthy supportive carbs to our weight loss journey. So our homework for today, continue tracking your activity. Hopefully you're doing well. You can see I slipped for a few days there that week we were sick. And choose what you want to track in your diet. It could be sugar, you could still track fat, or maybe you want to start tracking your protein intake this week. Pick whatever you want. You can change that column. I don't care. And then track your weight once a week as well and see how we're doing. So that is going to wrap up our lesson for today. Does anyone have any questions? I was going to show a more quick slide. I just added this right now, but a lot of people ask like, what is a good protein powder? Or how do I know if it's a good protein powder? Because protein powders can be a great way to like add in protein into your day when you really struggle or don't have time to like make a protein source in your snack or your meal. So I found this little infographic that kind of talks about a few quick things to look at when you're buying a protein powder. So one, there are protein powders are made from many different sources. They could be animal-based or plant-based. There's like pea protein, there's also whey protein, several other kinds. So sometimes individuals in their gut will have a different reaction to which source it is. So you may just have to try out a couple different ones and see which one your tummy likes, and you might not have a problem with any of them. Pick one that has a complete amino acid profile. So again, we talked about how if it's plant-based, sometimes it needs several different types of plant proteins to make that complete amino acid profile versus if it's a animal-based derivative that's already complete. You want to look for minimal ingredients and added sugars. So obviously we don't want something that's super sugary to counteract our goals. About 20 grams of protein a serving is a good goal. And so that's also something to look for. If it's lower than that, generally there's a lot of other added ingredients to the protein powder. One thing also, something that I do is I mix my protein powder with milk. One, because I just think it gives it a more tolerable flavor and texture. But if it's a lower gram protein, or maybe I'm only doing 1 scoop and it's recommending 2 scoops for the serving, I know my milk also has protein in it so that it's adding back into there and healthy fats. And some proteins are third-party tested, and it'll say that on the labels. Protein powders do not. They fall into the supplement category. So they do not go through any sort of review, certification, or anything by the USDA. So you get whatever you buy. No one's checking on it. But some protein powders do third-party testing, particularly athletes will use these products because they might go through drug testing or other types like Olympic testing things, and they got to make sure that there's not other product in that protein powder. And so those generally are tested and will have some probably higher quality behind them, but they also tend to cost more. So, okay, that was all I wanted. Any other questions before I let you go? Otherwise, if you haven't had lunch yet, make sure you've got some protein in it. That's what we need. All right, we'll see you next week when we talk about carbohydrates. So thank you guys.